We begin today in the Gemara on Daf Pei Aleph at the Mishnah. Sagt heilige Mishnah, Hakaine shnei ilonois b'toich stei chaverei. A person that's buying two trees in his friend's property. Okay, so in this case, the Tanna Kama says, Harei zeh lekona karka. If you're buying only two trees, so then it's only the trees that you acquire. The karka around the trees, and even the karka below the trees itself, you don't acquire. Meaning, if these trees die, you can't replant trees there in that area. You just bought the trees. However, Rab Meir argues and says, Kona karka, that you did acquire the karka as well, along with these two trees. When you sell two trees, part of the sale, it's understood, is that you're selling the karka below it, that you can replant there, and you're also selling karka around it, so that you can be able to come there and use these trees. Okay, this is the machlekes here is regarding two trees. But if it was three trees or more, then it's understood that it's not just the trees, it's also the karka around this. We had before in the Gemara, this thing you brought up a few times already. Okay, so here the Mishnah says that now, this is going back now to the Tanna Kama. Tanna Kama that says that you do not acquire the karka around, so therefore higdilu. If your trees, the branches grow large branches that spread out and create a shade over the area of the karka around, now that karka around does not belong to you. So lo yishafeh. The owner of the karka, the seller that he owns this karka, he's not allowed to cut off the branches of your tree that are creating a shade over his produce that he's growing in that area, and it's not good for him. He's not allowed to cut off the shade of your trees, because that's the whole understanding over here of the sale, that I'm selling you the trees, even though the karka is mine, but you have the right to have your trees here, and this is just, you're buying the rights for these trees, and he can't cut off your branches. And therefore in this case we only bought these two trees, just the trees. So any branches that grow from the trunk of the tree shaloi belong to the owner now of the trees. But any branches that grow from the roots of the trees, which are in the ground itself, shabala karka, that belongs to the owner of the karka that is the buyer didn't buy. If these trees die, karka, he doesn't own the karka in that area that he can go and plant other trees in their place. However, kana shloisha, if you buy three trees, then kana karka. You acquire not only the trees, but you get a space in the karka, not only right under the trees, but also around. You get a space of karka as well. And therefore, higdilu, if your tree grows and the branches grow out of that space of your karka and they're creating a shade over the karka of the seller, Yishafa, he's allowed to trim your trees, because over here the understanding is that he's selling you the trees with the area of the karka for those trees, but not more. Whatever shade is going to go further out into the seller's karka, that he's allowed to trim off. And whatever branches grow from the trunk or even from the roots of the tree that are in the ground, shaloi, it belongs to the buyer, because the karka around is all his. If these trees die, yesh le karka, he's still, the karka is his, and he can replant other trees there.
What's the chilik? What's the rationale between 2 and 3? Why 2 no?
3 is already considered to be like an orchard. Like if you're buying 3, so then you're buying not just you're buying the karka. 2 is just 2 individual trees. The karka doesn't come along.
Why does the tree lose its rights to grow for the shade?
Because over here, when you have the karka, so then it's only this karka that was sold to you. But any further karka where the shade is going up was not sold to you. But in the first case, when you sell just 2 trees, so then where my branch is supposed to go? I'm selling you the trees, and your branches are allowed to stick out here to create shade over his karka. So there, it's obviously understood that part of the sale is the rights that your branches should be here. So therefore, he's not allowed to cut it off at all. So okay, here the Gemara brings from a Mishnah in Masechta Bikurim that discusses taking the fruits of the Bikurim in a case where you only own the trees. So in the Mishnah we learned regarding Bikurim, you acquired only 2 trees in your friend's property, so maybe you bring the Bikurim, but ve'ena kaira. You can't say the psukim that you're supposed to say when you bring the bikurim, because what's the pasuk that you say there? Priya doma shenasatali. This is the fruit of the land that you gave me. But you don't own the land. You just own the trees and the fruits of the trees. Rab Meir says, maybe v'kaira. No, even if you bought just 2 trees, you can bring the bikurim and you can say the psukim. This is like we just learned in our Mishnah here, because according to Rab Meir, even when you buy just 2 trees, the land belongs to you as well. Amr Rav Yudam Shmuel. So now Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel regarding Rav Meir's opinion that really Mechayev Hoyer Rav Meir Af Pelikeach Peiris Menashuk. That according to Rav Meir, it's not only if you bought 2 trees, that because you bought these 2 trees, you own the karka as well, and therefore you can bring the bikurim, but even if you buy peiris from the marketplace. That's the words of the Gemara. The Bachir adds the words peiris se'ilon, and he takes out the words menashuk, because the Rashbam here explains that it doesn't mean a person that just went to the marketplace and bought himself fruits, that you would be chayiv to give bikurim. The Rashbam says what the Gemara is talking about is, if you bought fruits that are still attached to a tree, and now you're taking these fruits from the tree. You don't own any karka at all. You just bought the attached fruits to the tree. When you take off those fruits, you tie the gemi, you tie a certain something on it that it should be a sign that this is the bikurim, and you have to bring the bikurim. The point there is that according to Rav Meir, you chayiv to bring bikurim even if you don't own the karka at all. When we learned in the beginning, it seemed like what Rav Meir was saying is that when you buy 2 trees, so you do own the karka. That's why you have to bring the bikurim. But Shmuel said that no, really, Rav Meir meant to say a greater chiddush, that even if you just buy the fruits that are attached to the tree, you don't own any karka, you still have to bring the bikurim. And you can read the psukim as well. How do we know that this is what Rav Meir holds? The Diktani Mishnah Yisera, because what it says in bikurim, what it says here, it's an extra Mishnah. Why? Mechti, let's see, Tanale the Yeshle Karka. It says here that according to Rab Meir, when you buy 2 trees, you own the Karka. So if so, Pshita the Mevi V'Kaira. If that's the case, it's obvious that when he brings the fruits of these trees, that he has to bring them and then say the Psukim, he's fully chayiv and bikurim. So why does it say again this halacha that he has to bring the bikurim? Elishmami no, the extra Mishnah teaches that Mechayiv Hoyer Rab Meir Af B'Lekeach Peres Menashuk. That according to Rab Meir, Yechayiv, even if you buy the fruits, only the fruits that are attached to the tree, and not the karka itself, you're still going to be chayiv in the mitzvah of bikurim. Okay, the lashon of the Mishnah, the Taisus here points out that according to this pshat of Shmuel, the Gemara is going to refute the pshat of Shmuel. But according to this pshat of Shmuel, the lashon of the Mishnah, the Rab Meir says, maybe the kaira regarding the 2 trees that you own the karka is not really understood. It's not really about the fact that you bought 2 trees. Even if you just buy the fruits itself that are attached to the tree, you chayav to bring the bikurim. So the Gemara asks on the spot v'haksiv. The pasuk says Asher Tavi me'artzacha, that you chayav in bikurim only what you bring from the land. So you have to own karka from the land. Answers the Gemara, no, hahu lemute chutzlaretz. That's coming to exclude that in chutzlaretz there's no din of bikurim. But in Eretz Yisrael, if you bring from the fruits in Eretz Yisrael, even if you don't own the karka, you chayiv in the mitzvah of bikurim. So yeah, there's a long discussion in Taisus about this drasha. The Gemara says, because usually we have the rule, any of the mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz, like trumas, maasros, and so on, because it's a mitzvah in the produce of the land, it's only in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. Why does the Gemara need a special drasha here to say this? If it's obvious, we know by all mitzvahs hatluyos ba'aretz does not apply to Chutz La'aretz. One of the pshatim that Taisus says is that bikurim is not considered to be a mitzvah hatluya ba'aretz. The mitzvahs of trumas and maasros and so on, these are mitzvahs where the produce is usher to eat until you separate the truma and maasros. That means that this is a mitzvah that applies to the actual produce of the land. That it is usher before you go and separate the truma and maaser. Bikurim, it's not usher to eat any of the fruits of the tree before you give the bikurim. You could eat even without giving the bikurim. That means that it's not a mitzvah that applies to the cheftzah, that this is usher before you eat it. There's a mitzvah on the person to go and bring bikurim to the Beis HaMikdash. So without this drasha in the pasuk, I would say that this applies to any fruits, that it's a mitzvah that you should bring fruits to the Beis HaMikdash for the kayin, even the chutz la'aretz. So you need a pasuk to say that only in Eretz Yisrael.
There was no reward again of tying
a gemi, so you tie the gemi.
Ribbon on the tree,
yeah,
on the fruit.
Yeah.
Say,
that the first one that ripens.
Yeah, what's the point there?
It's the first one that ripens. That's the one that you bring for the bikurim. I want to ask from another pasuk. V'haksiv, the pasuk says at mascha, from your earth. So in other words, you're thanking the Eibishter that he gave you. Reishis bikuri at mascha, it says in the pasuk. So the Gemara says that's l'mutei ad masakom. That comes to exclude that a guy that owns property in Eretz Yisrael, from his territory, from his property, you don't have to bring bikurim. The Rashbam here adds into the Gemara that you have to be goydis in the Gemara that it says at mascha a second time. If you look in the Rashbam, it says vaksiv ad mascha shnei pam. It says twice ad mascha. one in Parshas Mishpatim and one in Parshas Kisisa regarding Bikurim. Why does it say twice? And the Rashbam is Goyres in the Gemara that the Gemara answers, one is to exclude that the property of a guy, you don't bring Bikurim from it, and the other is to exclude Admas Ger, that because when you, in Pasuk says regarding Bikurim, that Ashenishba Laviseinu Losis Lanu, so a ger that can't say Aviseinu is not chayiv in Bikurim either. That's the Rashbam's ger. So Taisa says you don't have to be Goyres it, there's other drashas. This is what Rashbam brings.
It's the land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave you. You sold the guy a piece, and now he owns it. No, it's still your land that HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
So there's actually a machlekes about that. Taisus brings here in the Gemara. But if a guy owns it, so then he has a koyach to be mafkia. It's mafkia the mitzvah, the mitzvah to fulfill. Another pasuk the Gemara brings that it says Asher nesatoli, that you gave me. If you don't own the karka, how could you say you gave me? So the Gemara answers, no, you could say that. The obviously zuzi v'zavnibo. You're thanking the Eibusher for giving me the money. That even if I don't own the karka, but you're thanking the Eibusher for giving you money that you bought these fruits, and that's what you have to bring in the bikurim. So this was all the pshat of Shmuel that according to Rab Meir, you don't have to own a piece of karka to be chayiv in bikurim. Masav Rabbe, but Rabbe asked on this, it says clearly in a brayse not so. You buy just one tree in your friend's property in Eretz Yisrael, maybe ve'ena kaira. You bring the bikurim, but you can't say the psukim. You're not really chayiv in the bikurim. L'fishalei kana karka, because you don't own a piece of land. Divrei Rab Meir, this is what Rab Meir says. So to Yufte, this clearly refutes what Shmuel said. If you don't own a piece of land, even Rab Meir would agree with one tree, you don't bring bikurim. Rab Shimon ben Al-Yakim le Rab Elazar. Rab Shimon ben Al-Yakim asked Rab Elazar the following question. My time the Rab Meir b'ilon echad, or my time the Rabbanon mishnei ilonis. What's the reason of Rab Meir's opinion? When you buy just one tree, or according to the Rabbanon, when you buy two trees, that you're not chayiv in bikurim, because of what we learn in the psukim here. But at the same time, though, you bring bikurim, but you don't say the psukim. So the question is, if you're not chayiv in the bikurim, why are you bringing the bikurim at all? Shouldn't bring them at all. So the Gemara says that Amaloi, Rabbi Elazar said, Davashar Rishayim lo yomru baitam. It matter that the earlier ones, the Tanoim before us, didn't give a reason for this. Tishaleni bebeis hamedrash. You're asking me this in beis hamedrash. Kedela baisheni, just to embarrass me, that I won't know the answer. So he didn't have the answer to the question. So the Gemara says, what's the answer? Omar Rabbe, so Rabbe says the answer is my kushya. What's the question? Not only is there an answer, but the answer is simple. Dilme, perhaps we could say, Rab Meir be'ilon echad. According to Rab Meir, when it comes to buying one tree in a property, sefukim misapkele, it's actually doubtful whether he does acquire the karka or not. It's a suffix whether the karka comes along with this or not. What's the deal of the sale here? And a similar, but Rabbanon b'shnei ilones sfukim misapkeluhu. And also Rabbanon, when you buy two trees, it's a doubt whether you're acquiring the karka or not. Okay, so therefore, what we say is that when it comes to money matters, what's the klal always by money matters? When there's a suffix, whether you have rights to something, that the seller is the one that has that possession of the karka as his. So if the buyer wants to claim that no, this was part of the sale, but he has to prove it. So since it's a suffix, the seller keeps the karka. So that's why Rab Meir said in the Mishnah, or Rabbanan said in the Mishnah that by two you don't get the karka, and Rab Meir says by one you don't get the karka. But when it comes to bikurim though, because it could be that the karka is yours, so you're going to have to bring the bikurim. You're machmer to bring the bikurim. That's the pshat of it. So this whole thing is a suffix. So you bring the bikurim, but you don't say the psukim. But the Gemara asks, how could you say this? And here the Gemara is going to go through a whole discussion about bringing bikurim, which is only a suffix, whether you chayiv or not. There could be a lot of problems with this. First, the Gemara asks on the lashon of the Mishnah, could you say that over here there's a suffix, whether you acquire the karka or not? But the Mishnah says, lefi shaloi kana karka divrei Rab Meir, or the Brisa uses this expression. That Rab Meir says that you bring the bikurim, but you don't read the psukim because you don't own a piece of land. He doesn't say that it's a suffix. So the Gemara says you have to amend the Brisa, eime shemaloi kana karka, that you can't read the psukim because it's possible that maybe you don't own a piece of land. So it's a suffix. Now the Gemara asks, number one, v'leichesh the dilmalav bikurim nenu, that it could be that this is not bikurim if you don't own a piece of land, and then the kama ayah cholon la'azara. you're bringing chulin into the azara. So what's the issue here, bringing chulin into the azara? So this question of the Gemara is unique because usually when we talk about a case where a person would bring a carbon that he might not be obligated in bringing that carbon, the problem is that you're going to bring the carbon, spray the blood on the mizbeach, and put it on the mizbeach and do the whole aveda with it. That's an issue because it's chulin. But over here, you're just bringing fruits into the azara. What's the problem? So the Rashbam has one pshat and says that the problem is that it is actually a ism in atayra, that you're not allowed to bring it into the azara. It says in the pasuk, and you're not allowed to bring these fruits into the azara. Taisus over here adds that with the fruits of the bikurim, there is a mitzvah of hagosha that you're supposed to touch it to the mizbeach and then tnufa. So there is a certain aveda that's done with it in the azara. That's the chulun azara. It's asim in atayra. But the Rashbam has another pshat that when the Gemara asks this question of chulun azara, it's only asim midrabanan. Because when you bring it into the azara, it appears to be like a hektish, a kachim, and then later you treat it with chulin, like chulin, and people will think that you're allowed to treat a carbon this way. So it's like zaydim midrabanan not to bring it into the azara. So how can you bring these bikurim that may be chulin into the azara? Answers the Gemara, the makdish lahu. Because it's a suffix, you're going to have to dedicate it for hektish. You're going to have to say, the Rashbam says, you say with a condition. If it's bikurim, I don't have to dedicate it for hektish. But if it's not bikurim, because I don't own the land, so then on that tzad, it's going to be hektish. The Gemara, so wait, if you were makdish it, what happens with bikurim? The kayanim eat the bikurim. How could they eat it? It could be that it's kachim, and therefore you moil behektish. The kayan can't eat something that belongs to hektish. And says the Gemara, the paraklahu, that then after you bring it and you do what is done with it in the azara, and then when the kayanim want to eat it, it has to be redeemed. Who redeems it exactly is a machlokes. Some say, I think the Rashbam says that the kayan has to redeem it, but others say that it's the Yisrael that's bringing these bikurim. He has to redeem it. It's to pay for it to redeem it. There's another problem here with this. Perhaps this is not bikurim at all. And and if so, what he's doing by bringing this as bikurim, he's taking it out from the fulfillment of the mitzvah of truma and meiser. You have to separate it from all your produce, truma and meiser. But bikurim, there is no truma and meiser on the actual bikurim. So how could you bring it as a suffix that it may be bikurim, and then you're not separating the proper trumas and meisers that you're supposed to? And says the Gemara, what you have to do is the mafresh lahu. You do have to separate the trumas and meisers, and you have to give that to who it's supposed to be given to. So the Gemara says, how could you do this? How's it going to work? Let's see. You can separate truma gedayla, that who gets the truma? Yav lo l'kayin. That anyways goes to the kayin. So whether it's bikurim, whether it's truma, it's to say it's a kayin that eats it, so it's not going to be a problem. Ma'aser sheni as well. You can separate the ma'aser sheni, nami, yav lo l'kayin, and then let the kayin eat the ma'aser sheni. The ma'aser sheni is the ma'aser that you eat in Yerushalayim. So over here, let the kayin eat it in Yerushalayim, so it's also okay. Ma'aser ani as well, that on some of the years that you separate, not ma'aser sheni, but instead you have the ma'asers that you give for the poor. So nami yav lo l'kayin ani. So you'll separate, and a kayin which is poor will eat it. So it's not a problem. But el ma'aser rishain, then there's ma'aser rishain. Who does ma'aser rishain belong to? The Levi. Who? That belongs to the Levi. So laman yavle, who are you giving this to? If it's bikurim and you're giving it to the kayin to eat, but you also have to separate the ma'aser sheni, the ma'aser rishain, because of a suffix that it might not be bikurim, so you have to give it to the Levi. Answers the Gemara, the yavle lekayin, you give it to the kayin, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, based on what Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah said. The Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Truma Gedayla Lekayin, Ma'aser Rishain is Levi, goes to the Levi, but David Rabbi Kiva, but Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Ma'aser Rishain, Af Lekayin, or the Bach takes out the word Af, the Ma'aser Rishain is for the Kayin. And the Rashbam here brings that actually in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash, because many Leviim did not come up to join the Yidden, and when they built the second Beis HaMikdash, so there was a knas that Ezra gave for the Leviim that they can't get the Ma'aser anymore, and it goes to the Kayanim. And Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah holds that based on the lashon of the pasuk, it's mashma that it refers also when it says that you give the Ma'aser Rishon to the Leviim, it doesn't only mean to the Leviim, it means the whole shevet of Levi, which includes also the Kayanim. And the Kayanim also sometimes called Leviim. So you can give the Ma'aser Rishon to the Kayanim as well. And that's what you have to do with this Bikurim. You have to separate the Trumas and Ma'aseres, and that Trumas and Ma'aseres is going to be eaten by the Kayan, which is eating it, whether it's Bikurim, whether it's Trumas and Ma'aseres. But there's another question here on this. But Vidilme, Bikurim Ninu, Oba Kriye. But what are we saying here? Because it's a suffix, so you bring it as bikurim, but you don't read the psukim. But the question is, bringing it and reading the psukim is part of the mitzvah. So how could you bring it and not read the psukim? And says the Gemara, no, kriya loy ma'akeves. That when it says the psukim that you read, when you bring the bikurim, it doesn't hold back the mitzvah. You fulfill the mitzvah even without reading the psukim. In fact, the Gemara, why not? Veloy, the reading the psukim is not something which you must say together with bringing the bikurim. But for Amar Abzeire says the following rule, which is brought in Gemara many times. What this means is, if a person dedicates that he's going to bring a carbon mincha as an adova, and the maximum amount that can be held in a bowl in the Beis Hamikdash is 60 isarin. So what's if you say, and that to be able to put it inside the bowl and to mix it inside, 60 isarin is the maximum. What's if you say that you're dedicating 61, so then the bowl is too small for this, so now you're going to have to bring it in two separate bowls in order to be able to mix it in it. Why? Because if you put too much in the bowl and it can't be mixed, then it must be mixed. If you have it in the bowl and it could be mixed, so then it's not ma'akev, then you don't have to mix it. But if it's in the bowl and it can't be mixed, you're going to have to separate it in two separate bowls in order for it to be able to be mixed. And that Rashbami brings the whole source of this, the psukim that you learn this out from, that in order for it has to at least be roy to be bila, to do the mixture. So the same thing over here, the Gemara is asking that in a case where a person brings the bikurim and he could say the psukim, but he's not, so then it's not ma'akiv. But over here, if he's saying that he can't say the psukim because maybe he's not chayiv in the bikurim, so it should be ma'akiv. It should be a problem, the fact that he's not saying the psukim. So the Gemara answers, the Ovid look Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina, he does like what Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina said. The Amar, Rabbi Yossi Bar Chanina says that what happens if Botzron v'shogram b'yat shliach, if you cut the produce of the Botzron he's speaking about from a vineyard, you cut the grapes, and now you send these grapes with a shliach to go bring the bikurim. Umeiz shliach, and now this shliach dies, baderech, on the way. So then what happens is in such a case, maybe ve'eina kaida. So you bring the bikurim, but you don't say the psukim in such a case. Why not? My time, the chsiv, because in the pasuk when it says that you bring the bikurim and you read the psukim, what does it say? Sorry, v'lakachta ve'hevesa. You take the bikurim and you bring them. What do you learn out from this? That if you're the one that picked the fruits or cut the grapes, and you're the one that also brought it, then you say the psukim. So over here, in this case, since you can't read the psukim because it's a suffix, it's not sure if it even belongs to you, so what do? So you can cut the bikurim and send it with a shliach. So as long as it's not the same person that's cutting the fruits and bringing it into the Beis Hamikdash, so you don't say the psukim. So the Bahalek is, so since it's not the same person, so you don't have to say the psukim. Okay, now let's just finish off here to the two dots. The Gemara concludes the Indian. Why are we b'chlal saying that you shouldn't read the psukim? Mechdi, let's see. Psukim dinu. It's saying psukim of the Torah. Likri, let him say these psukim. What's the problem of saying these psukim? Even if you can't say it as part of the mitzvah that you're mechayev to say the psukim because you don't know if you're obligated, but why can't you just say some psukim of chumash? So he answered him, no, we don't allow a person to do this because it looks like a lie. It looks like that he's saying it for the mitzvah of bikurim, and it really isn't. It doesn't look like he's stam saying psukim now from the Torah. It looks like he's saying it for the bikurim. And Rashbam says, he's saying a lie, so he shouldn't say this. There's a different reason why we don't allow him to say the psukim, because then dilma asel afkin betruma meiser. If he's going to say the psukim, it's going to look like that he's totally chayiv and bikurim, and it's not just a suffix, and he won't separate the truma and the meisters. As we explained before, by this case of suffix bikurim, you have to bring the bikurim, but you also have to separate the trumas and meisters on the tzad that it's not bikurim. So therefore, you shouldn't read the psukim. So it should be clear that it's a suffix bikurim.